Imagine witnessing a crime live on national television where, before the eyes of millions, the most dangerous man on the planet drops dead, yet not a single camera, none of the thousands of spectators in the arena, nor even the killer himself, can find the murder weapon. We are not at Madison Square Garden or in Las Vegas. We are in a tiny backwater town called Lewiston, Maine, inside a hockey arena, where, on May 25th, 1965, the air was thick, not with the excitement of great sport, but with the sticky, sickening scent of fear and impending catastrophe. In the center of the ring stands a young Muhammad Ali, radiant and quick as Mercury, and opposite him is Sonny Liston, a grim mountain of muscle, an ex-con, a man whose gaze could stop a heart, and who was considered an indestructible monster until the opening bell rang. The fight lasts only 1 minute and 44 seconds, and in that brief flash, an event occurs that splits the history of sports into before and after, leaving the entire world to wonder, was this divine intervention or the greatest con of the century? You probably expect to see a brutal slugfest, an exchange of blows, blood, and sweat, but reality delivers a surprise that leaves the brain in a stupor. Ali throws a short, almost careless right-hand jab. It's not the kind of punch that breaks jaws. It's the kind of flick used to swat a persistent fly. But Sonny Liston, this 200-pound titan who had never been knocked down, suddenly collapses onto the canvas as if his bones had instantly turned to jelly. The arena doesn't erupt in cheers. It freezes in a dead, ringing silence because no one, absolutely no one, saw the punch. People in the front rows glance at each other. Photographers check their cameras, unable to believe they missed the moment, and Ali himself stands over the fallen giant not with the triumph of a victor, but with the fury of a cheated man, screaming into his face, "Get up and fight, you sucker! No one will believe this." Why does the winner demand that the loser stand up? Because Ali realizes this looks like a cheap play, a bad production in a school theater, and he doesn't want to be part of this farce. But to solve this mystery, you must look away from the screaming Ali and look down at the canvas, where the strangest and most suspicious scene in boxing history is unfolding. Look at Sonny Liston. This is our dagger, the piece of evidence that screams that what's at play here is not physics, but psychology, or something even darker. Liston is not lying unconscious. His eyes are open. He isn't glassy-eyed, as one would be in a deep knockout. Instead, he performs a strange, unnatural movement. He rolls onto his back, then to his side, making a clumsy, almost comical somersault, as if checking to see if his limbs still work. Ask yourself honestly, how does a person who has just been knocked out behave? They lie flat, but Liston is moving. He's rolling on the floor, and his gaze isn't searching for the referee to hear the count, nor for a doctor. He is looking at his corner. He is looking at the crowd. In his eyes you read not the pain of a blow, but the cold, calculating fear of a man waiting for a signal. What is he waiting for? Permission to stand up? Or confirmation that if he does stand up, he won't be killed right there in front of everyone? This roll on the canvas looks so fake that the crowd begins to chant not the winner's name, but one short, devastating word: fix. In that second, Liston didn't look like a boxer who had lost a fight. He looked like an actor who had forgotten his line and was panicking, improvising, trying to portray death, but doing it so poorly that even Stanislavski would have screamed, "I don't believe you." But if Ali's fist barely grazed his cheek, what invisible force threw this giant to the floor and pinned him to the ground with a weight exceeding gravity? The answer to this question is hidden not in Ali's gloves, but in the shadows standing behind the ring, and in the cold metal Liston might have felt against his temple, even while at the center of attention for millions. Let's tear the mask off this giant and look the truth in the eye, the truth that turns the story of the Phantom Punch from a sports drama into a crime thriller, where boxing gloves are merely props for distraction. To understand why Sonny Liston, a man who broke sparring partners' jaws just for a warm-up, decided to fall from a gust of wind, you must realize who he really was. America saw in him an uncontrollable beast, but in reality, this beast sat on a short, rusty chain held by men whose names were whispered even in police stations. Frankie Carbo and Blinky Palermo, the shadow kings of boxing, the architects of fixed matches, and the owners of human souls. Liston did not belong to himself for a single second. He was an asset, mob property, a racehorse, fed while it brought profit and prepared for slaughter as soon as the odds shifted against it. Do you think Liston entered the ring to defend his honor? That is the illusion the promoters sold you. The truth is that before this fight, Sonny was drowning in debt, his financial situation was catastrophic, and the mafia controlling the betting pools had placed massive sums on his defeat. The script was written long before the boxers left their locker rooms. Lay down, Sonny, and we'll forgive your debts. Win, and you'll find your head in a trash can. Ask yourself honestly, if offered a choice between public shame and an unmarked grave in the woods, how many seconds would you deliberate? Liston was a criminal. He knew the rules of the game, and he knew that no did not exist in conversation with these people. But if it were only about the mafia, Liston might have still tried to save face by lasting a few rounds for appearance's sake. However, this is where the Santa Barbara effect kicks in, turning the situation from bad to hopeless. A second power was present in the arena, one Liston feared even more than his gangster creditors. Behind the young Ali stood the Nation of Islam, an organization the FBI in 1965 considered the most dangerous internal threat to the U.S. The air in the country was electrified with violence. Just 3 months before the fight, Malcolm X, Ali's former mentor, had been brutally gunned down, and rumors that the next victim could be anyone who stood in the nation's way spread like wildfire. Liston was a paranoid man, but this time his paranoia had solid ground. Rumors reached him that fanatics in Ali's circle would not allow an infidel to beat their champion a second time. They whispered to him that snipers would be in the crowd. They hinted that if he started beating Ali, as he had with all previous opponents, the light might go out for him forever. Not from a punch, but from a bullet. Can you imagine the psychological state of a man stepping into a ring, expecting a shot from the darkness? Liston looked into the audience, and in every glint of a camera lens, in every sudden movement in the crowd, he saw the barrel of a gun. The spectator thinks a boxer is afraid of losing. But Sonny Liston that evening in Lewiston was afraid of winning. He was caught in a pincer between the hammer of the mafia, which demanded his defeat for money, and the anvil of religious fanatics, who demanded Ali's victory for ideology. For Liston, this fight turned into the most expensive and dangerous game of Russian roulette in history. Any outcome other than a quick and convincing defeat meant a death sentence. He didn't come to the ring to fight. He came to find an exit. He looked for a moment, any opportunity to fall, play dead, and escape that cursed square of ropes alive. And when Ali threw that light, almost invisible jab, Liston saw in it not a threat, but salvation. This was his chance, his ticket to freedom. He didn't feel the pain of the blow. He felt the relief of finally finding an excuse to end this nightmare. He collapsed onto the canvas, not because his muscles failed, but because his survival instinct screamed louder than a champion's pride. He lay there, listening to Ali's screams, and in his head beat only one thought: don't get up. If you get up, they'll kill you. In this drama, Liston was neither the villain nor the weakling. He was a hostage who chose shame over death, and that choice was made long before the referee began the count. Midway through the first round, the timer hits 1 minute and 44 seconds, and at that moment, something happens that millions of people will later re-watch in slow motion for decades, trying to find what simply wasn't there. Muhammad Ali, dancing around the lumbering Liston, throws his right hand. A quick, snapping, but seemingly unaccented blow that barely grazes his opponent's cheekbone. In the world of professional boxing, such punches are called counter jabs. They are used to check distance, to irritate, but they don't knock out 200-pound bulls. Yet, the same second Ali's glove slid over Liston's sweaty skin, the laws of physics in that main arena ceased to apply. Sonny Liston, a man who could withstand sledgehammer blows, suddenly went limp, his legs buckling as if an invisible razor had severed his tendons, and he crashed onto the canvas back first, arms spread wide like a crucified martyr. The sound of his massive body hitting the floor was the only sound in the arena, because the crowd didn't explode in a scream. It choked on collective bewilderment. This was that visual silence where the brain refuses to process the incoming image. People saw the motion, but they didn't see a punch capable of felling such a giant. But the most interesting part was happening not in the audience, but in the center of the ring, where Muhammad Ali, instead of celebrating and running to a neutral corner as the rules require, turned into a raging fury. He stood directly over the fallen enemy, looming over him, screaming words into his face that the ringside microphones caught with chilling clarity. "Get up and fight, you sucker! No one will believe this." Do you see the absurdity of the situation? The winner is begging the loser to get up. Ali was furious not from joy, but because he felt cheated. He knew his punch wasn't a knockout blow, and he realized Liston was stealing his greatness, turning a championship fight into a cheap farce. The referee in the ring, the legendary Jersey Joe Walcott, an old champion who had seen everything in boxing, looked at that moment like a man who had lost control of a sinking ship. He tried to push Ali to a corner. He tried to start the count, but chaos swallowed the ring. And here, in the epicenter of this madness, we must focus our gaze on the primary evidence of the deception, on our dagger, that very strange roll of Liston's. Look at it closely. Sonny is on his back, but he is not unconscious. His eyes are open, and they lack that glassy emptiness, typical of a concussion. In them, one reads clear, cold calculation and a panicked search. He begins to roll from side to side, performing clumsy, almost comical movements, resembling a beetle flipped on its back. The spectator thinks, he's trying to get up, he's fighting dizziness. But here the Santa Barbara effect kicks in, flipping the meaning of the scene. Liston is not trying to get up. He is stalling. His gaze isn't darting toward the referee or Ali. He is looking at his corner. He is looking into the darkness of the arena. He is searching for his owners, his creditors from the mafia, and perhaps those mythical snipers of the Nation of Islam. He is waiting for a signal. His body is ready to spring. His muscles are working, but his will is paralyzed by a fear that has nothing to do with boxing. This role on the canvas is the worst acting in the history of sports. He lies there thinking, if I get up now, will it look convincing enough? Or should I stay down for a few more seconds so they believe I'm really out? Ali continues to scream, waving his fist. Walcott rushes about, forgetting the count, and Liston continues his one-man show on the floor, his eyes pleading, "Please, stop this. Declare the knockout. Let me get out of here alive." He was not a victim of a punch. He was a victim of a script he had to play to the end, even if it cost him his reputation as a coward forever. In that minute, it wasn't the boxer Sonny Liston who died on the ring. It was the faith of millions in the honesty of sports, because they all saw how the fear of a bullet or a debt proved stronger than the desire to be a champion. Liston lay waiting for the referee to finally utter the magic word "out," which would be for him not a sentence to defeat, but a pardon and a pass into a safe life outside the ring. What happened next in that Lewiston ring violates not only the rules of boxing, but the logic of any organized sport, turning a championship bout into a surreal theater of the absurd, where no one, not the referee, the fighters, nor the spectators, understood if the fight was ongoing or already over. Sonny Liston, that massive, terrifying bear who had just been sprawled on the floor playing the dying swan, suddenly performed a miracle of resurrection. He clumsily, heavily rose to his feet. Do you think justice prevailed? That the fight continued? That is exactly what the audience saw. Ali and Liston squared off again in the center of the ring, and Ali, smelling blood, began raining a hail of blows on his opponent. It seemed the phantom punch was just an episode, a strange glitch, and now the real battle would begin. But here the conveyor principle kicks in to confuse you. While the fighters were exchanging blows, a third person in the ring, referee Jersey Joe Walcott, was occupied not with officiating, but with panic. Walcott, an old legend of the ring, completely lost his grip on reality that evening. He didn't hear the timekeepers count. He didn't send Ali to a neutral corner. He allowed chaos to devour the rules. And at that moment, as Ali was preparing to finish off the resurrected Liston, an event occurred that has no parallel in sports history. From the front row, right from behind the ropes, jumped not a doctor, not a policeman, and not a cornerman. It was a journalist. Nat Fleischer, the editor of the Ring magazine, a man with a notepad, but without any official authority, began screaming at the referee, waving his arms as if he were directing traffic at a burning intersection. Can you imagine this at the Super Bowl or the Champions League final? A reporter running onto the field to cancel a goal. But in Lewiston, in this hole at the edge of the world, anything was possible. Fleischer screamed in Walcott's face. The count was long. He was down for more than 10 seconds. The fight is over. And Walcott, this experienced referee, instead of removing the outsider, did something that makes one doubt his sanity. He listened. He believed a journalist more than his own eyes. He turned around, ran to the fighting giants, and literally pulled them apart, stopping a fight he had just restarted himself. That's it. It's over, he announced, raising Ali's hand. The crowd howled, but in that howl there was no delight. There was the rage of people who had been swindled, who had been sold defective goods. But the most interesting psychological study unfolded not in the center of the ring, where Ali posed for photographers, screaming about his greatness, but in the loser's corner. Look at Sonny Liston in this second. The spectator expects to see despair, tears, attempts to contest the decision, for he was just robbed of a chance at redemption. But here, the Santa Barbara effect flips everything. Liston doesn't argue. He isn't angry. He looks calm, even satisfied. As soon as Walcott separated their hands, the tension left Sonny's body as if air had been let out of a balloon. He didn't lose a fight. He closed a deal. He fulfilled his part of the contract. He fell. He stayed down. He stood up when allowed. And now he was free. In the locker room, where Liston went under the boos and curses of the crowd throwing trash at him, witnesses described an atmosphere that in no way matched the tragedy of losing a title. It smelled not of grief, but of smelling salts and the cigarette smoke of relief. Liston sat on a bench, and in his eyes, those same terrifying dead eyes of a killer, beat one single thought: I survived. He sold his title, he sold his honor, he allowed the world to consider him a coward and a weakling, but he bought the most important thing: life. He knew the mafia would forgive his debts, and the Nation of Islam fanatics would not shoot a defeated loser. That ridiculous role on the canvas, that clownery with the attempt to stand up, all of it was part of his plan to save his own skin. The greatest knockout in Ali's career was actually the greatest act of surrender, directed by fear, and Liston, sitting in the safety of the locker room's concrete walls, could breathe deeply for the first time in months, knowing the gun barrel was no longer looking at the back of his head. He became a laughingstock for history, but he remained a living man, and on that humid May morning in 1965, for Sonny Liston, that was the only victory that mattered. Today, when you walk into any sports bar from New York to Tokyo, or scroll through social media looking for motivation, you inevitably stumble upon this image, arguably the most famous photo in sports history, an icon of the 20th century. Muhammad Ali, young, furious, beautiful in his rage like a Greek god of war, stands over the prostrate body of Sonny Liston, his right hand pressed to his chest in a gesture of absolute dominance, his mouth open in a victorious cry that seems audible even through the paper. This photo became a symbol of the triumph of will, proof that the impossible is possible. But now, knowing the dirty, sticky truth of what was going on in the head of the man lying down, this glossy image should evoke in you not admiration, but a cold shiver of disgust. You are not looking at a great victory. You are looking at documentary evidence of the greatest blackmail in history, captured on film by the brilliant photographer Neil Leifer, who, without knowing it, shot a crime scene rather than a sporting achievement. If you wipe away the glaze of legend and look closely at Liston's eyes in this shot, you will see not the void of a knockout, nor the glassy stare of the defeated, but the hunted, panicked look of an animal playing dead so the predator passes by without tearing its throat out. We are used to thinking the phantom punch is a riddle of physics. We argue about trajectory, speed, and the power of the jab, trying to find a scientific explanation for the giant's fall. But the truth hidden behind the scenes in Lewiston turns this sporting moment into a psychological horror, where the laws of biomechanics yield to the laws of survival in the criminal underworld. That ridiculous, clumsy role Liston took on the canvas, the dagger of our story we noticed at the beginning, now gains its true, sinister meaning and becomes the key to the code. Sonny Liston was not an actor. He was a fighter, a bone crusher, and that is exactly why his acting was so bad, so unconvincing. He didn't know how to fall on purpose. His body rebelled against it, but his mind, shackled by the horror of the mafia and phantom snipers, forced the muscles to obey. He did what his survival instinct ordered. "Stay down, Sonny. Don't move. Stay down until they take the invisible guns away from your head." Ali, screaming, "Get up!" appears in this scene not as a victor, but as the only honest man in a room full of liars, unaware he was part of a stage play. He didn't know he was screaming at a man who had already signed a contract with the devil and sold his name for the chance to see the next sunrise. Ali thought he was fighting for the undisputed championship title, but Liston was fighting for the right just to stay alive, and in that battle, he lost his honor but won his existence. Fate's irony reached its peak here, triggering that intellectual orgasm from realizing the scale of the tragedy. This fight, which everyone called a farce, made Ali immortal, gifting him an aura of mystical invincibility. But this same fight destroyed Liston's reputation, turning the era's most terrifying puncher into a cowardly clown whose name became a synonym for the word fix. But did it save him? This is where history takes its last, dark turn, worthy of a noir novel's finale. Liston sold his honor to buy life, but deals with the darkness rarely end with a happy ending. A few years later, Sonny would be found dead in his Las Vegas home, and the circumstances of his death would be as murky and inexplicable as that fight in Maine. The official version was a heroin overdose, but those who knew Sonny whispered that he was deathly afraid of needles. Perhaps the shadows he so clumsily tried to hide from in the ring finally caught up with him in the dark, presenting a bill that cannot be paid with a fall. He fell in 1965 to survive, but that fall continued until the end of his days, turning him into a ghost while still alive. A man who knew the truth but took it to his grave, leaving us only with questions and this cursed, beautiful photo. And now, standing before this monument of lies we call boxing history, I want to ask you a question that will force you to reconsider everything you believed in. Look at that punch one more time. Turn on the slow motion. Was it perfect timing, that invisible jab that shut down the giant's brain, as Ali fans claim? Or was it the most expensive, cynical, and poorly acted production in history, where one actor knew the script and the other improvised blindly, trying to save his life? Do you believe in Ali's magic or the power of Liston's animal fear? What actually felled Sonny? A fist weighing a few ounces, or the invisible weight of debts and threats weighing a lifetime? Write one word in the comments: punch or mafia. Your answer will show what kind of world you prefer to live in: a world of beautiful, inspiring legends, or a world of brutal, ugly truth, where heroes are made on the bones of broken men. I will be waiting for your verdict.